My name is Jonathan Yukio Clark. I am a Hawaii-based artist living on the island of Maui. I work in many different disciplines, primarily sculpture with some printmaking, painting, textile, drawing, and other things as well. A lot of my sculpture includes elements of woodworking. It's something that I'm really drawn to. It's a material that I have a close affinity for. I really look to elements of architecture, things that are built into other structures, elements such as the shoji sliding door or the yukini shoji, the snow viewing window. And there are often facets of Japanese architecture that will frame the landscape that lies on the other side of the partition. My earlier works in painting were using mixed media as a way to sort of parallel the diversity and the sort of intermingling of cultures that happens in Hawaii that I haven't really seen anywhere else that I've experienced, and to also draw intersections between that sort of multiplicity of culture along with my own personal upbringing as an artist of half Japanese descent, half white descent, with many different cultural influences as a result of growing up on Maui, but also having a strong sense of cultural grounding in our Japanese heritage. In some ways, it was something that really grounded me, but in other senses, it was something that was very distant from. Just in a span of 1 to 2 generations, my family, they would retain certain customs, but they had also lost a lot of the information or the sort of knowledge behind a lot of those customs or festivities, why those things are carried out in the way that they are. In my art and in my life, I felt like I was trying to delve back into that to almost relearn and recapture that knowledge that had been lost, and to make up that distance that had grown between myself and Japanese culture. I think my current works now are sort of a way of searching through those inquiries and to really look introspectively as a way to flesh out those ideas and to locate both where I am physically and where I am emotionally. I've noticed that in a lot of my work, my grandmother and grandfather's house, it comes through in a lot of ways, not always in ways that I'm anticipating. A lot of it is just sort of subconscious recollections of the architecture, the angles that are in that house. It has all these different facets to it, and it's also kind of up built into the mountain. It's something that I think is almost a locus for the family. It's sort of the nucleus in a lot of ways, and it's something that kind of channels through me in a lot of the forms, the angles that I incorporate into my woodwork, and also in the form of some of the materials that are not wood. So things such as casts using hydrocal that's tinted with a concrete pigment to give it a charcoal color, and those casts are made using molds that I've taken from the rock walls that my grandfather built. Those walls, they're still standing, they're still evidence of the labor of his hands. They're something that really, I think, show a window into his personality, into his philosophy. Especially the corners of them are made of these stones that he found going on I don't know how many trips up into the forest behind his house, gathering rocks, different stones that are all naturally formed into 90-degree angles. That is so peculiar to me that he had the patience to find all those stones, but it also really indicates like a certain humility and a certain awe for the forms found in nature, and using those to create new shapes and new folds in an architectural space. A lot of the sculptures that I do, They have little window elements or sliding elements, things that can be looked through, or they have elements such as washi paper that will let the light through while masking whatever is on the other side of the paper. So there's different sort of like framing mechanisms that happen in those pieces, and then in combination with that I like to insert casts of the rock wall or small renderings done in gouache or different types of painting mediums, sometimes drawing, sometimes cut glass, and those become sort of little excerpts, if you will, that work alongside the elements that are visible through the pieces. Well, a lot of times I'll brainstorm using cut paper, and I'll build these little scale models or maquettes, and that's a really great way for me to brainstorm the sculpture without having to think of all the sort of logistical or gravitational constraints of sculpture. I think initially when the world came to a standstill at the end of March, like a lot of the noise and sort of the layers of excess were shed, and in a lot of ways it was a chance to kind of refocus and recalibrate. We've also been in this strange flow of time for the past few months where it feels like we're kind of suspended midair. Everything is paused, or it's hard to tell if we're moving forward or if we're moving backward. And I think amidst all of this, nature has kind of emerged as this steady presence that is a real source of resilience. The seasonal changes here, they're not as pronounced, but they do happen. They happen more subtly, and they've shown a way to move forward and continue to adapt. I think in this time, the studio has become a renewed sense of drive for me, a chance to kind of come into my own space and set my own challenges and really work through like what is it that is within me that needs to be released into my work today, or what needs to be like pulled from within me and almost manifested as something physical. I mean, the works are very personal to me, but I think they also speak to a sort of collective sense of, you know, like we all carry these things with us. We all carry these sort of impressions of the people we've interacted with and where we come from, and, you know, the elements of the natural world that resonate with us. Those kind of define how we look at the world.